This might be one of the greatest classes that we've ever had inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The great stories from Kramer with the Packers in his long wait. We have a lot of Packers that are in. I know Nick is into Dr. Doom.
Robert Brazil, man.
I mean, meeting his family, spending the whole weekend with his family. He was a blessing. I believe like him and I will be lifelong friends. Father and mother, 84, 85, scooting around Canton. Like, man, what y'all been waiting on? Like, we've been ready for this, like, ready to throw a party. And then, of course, the headliners in Urlacher, Ray Lewis, and Randy Moss. It was a very, very special weekend for my new classmates, for my new Hall
of Fame brothers.
Hall of Fame brothers. And then, of course, with T.O. not being there was great discussions about what we'll do moving forward as far as the Hall of Fame, in case someone wanted to follow up on what T.O. had did.
What I think is so cool about this is just watching from afar. Listen, there is no such thing as a perfect speech, because everyone wants speeches to be shorter or to be what they would do, and there's no such thing as a perfect speech. But what all of these men had the ability to do is, for one last time, and I know, like, Randy's still on TV, and Ray's with us on TV, so a lot of these guys have not moved out of the spotlight, but for one last time...
There is no spotlight like that spotlight.
Exactly.
Even when you're working in national telecast and everything, having 22,000, the largest crowd that we've had at Tom Benson Stadium, so that national spotlight, man, it's even bigger than being on TV.
Well, and because when we're on TV right now, there's other sports shows on TV. Like, when Randy, in that moment, the entire sports world stops and pays attention to you one last time. And I think it's got to be such a cool thing. Go ahead.
And we're very, very fortunate that we got some of the behind-the-scenes video from the Hall of Fame. I was able to get them to make 9 minutes of stuff that some publicly seen, some of this stuff has not been seen. So to have it in the show, be able to share it with our fans and everything, I think was really special. Because the weekend in itself and the stories to football heaven, all these guys had a tremendous journey. None of these guys, when they were born, like, okay, they're going to end up in the Hall of Fame. So I think the uniqueness of all the stories was fabulous.
Did it feel, there's so much discussion around how special this class is. You've been there before, obviously getting inducted, but the years following, did it feel different?
No, it felt the same. We knew that there's always certain things that you have to address, if that being even when the concussions, if that being the protests. We, at the Ray Nitschke Luncheon, when we get together, we typically address those things, and this year was no different. We addressed the elephant in the room, Terrell Owens, as far as what we're going to do moving forward, got the opinions of the Hall of Famers that were in the room. So it was the same. It was the same, even, and this was just another issue that we had to address.
Well, I think when Sarah says that, because I know we're going to talk about the T.O. stuff later, different as far as the caliber, when you said one of the best classes ever, when you have and so my guess is, I'm not going to speak for you here, but I've heard you talk about the Hall enough to know that once you're in the Hall of Fame, there is no tiers of the Hall. There is no hierarchy of the Hall. Right. You guys are all on equal playing field. That's what Chris always, your line about the barbershop debates. Like, how good was Cris Carter? Well, he's a Hall of Famer. Like, it is the statement that ends the debates. From a guy who's not in it, who does do, like, look at things in a more of a ranking historical perspective, what is true is what this class has is arguably the greatest middle linebacker ever, and certainly one of the greatest of his, the greatest of his generation in Ray Lewis, and then another damn good inside linebacker in Brian Urlacher. It's got the two of the three most statistically accomplished receivers in Randy and T.O., even if that T.O. wasn't there. And that's not even to mention Brian Dawkins, who was a generational safety. Robert Brazil, who I thought, my time in Houston, people love him there as an Oiler. He's one of those former Oilers that's almost a man without a country, because the Titans bought up all their rights, but the Titans don't really embrace those guys, and the Houston Texans aren't allowed to. And then, I mean, whether it's Bobby Beathard or Jerry Kramer, two guys that I think the average sport, even a pretty diehard football fan, and doesn't remember Jerry Kramer. And a lot of guys don't know Bobby Beathard. They're like, oh, is he related to CJ? Well, yeah, he actually is related to the...
Yeah, CJ was at the ceremony, too.
He got a day, Shanahan and the Niners gave him time off. So just as far as the totality of accomplishments, there is no bad Hall of Fame class, but there are particularly unbelievable ones. And this one, at least in my eyes, was.
Yeah, and there was a couple special moments that stood out. One, Bob Kraft, seeing him and Bill Belichick surprise Randy Moss on the stage before his speech. I took some pictures of that. That was a special moment. That touched Randy because he didn't think that they were going to be there. So that surprise visit from them. And then just seeing Dick Butkus address Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher. Now, I didn't know that Brian Urlacher and Dick Butkus, there might have been like a little tension there, just based on them being there in Chicago. But seeing Dick Butkus address these players, those are a couple of the really, really special behind-the-scenes moments that I really will take from this class of 2018.
When you look at the speeches, and thinking about when you were preparing your speech and the stage you're at, the moment that is, when does it hit you? When does it hit you, the totality of the moment as a player, as an inductee into the Hall of Fame, when you are about to give that speech?
Well, the speech, I call it the most important speech that you'll ever give. And the reason why, because you'll never get that stage again. And you know it's easy to mess up. You can miss a lot of people. There's really a lot of people to thank in doing it. So the magnitude of it, and the players that are already in the hall, we always tease the players. Who's going to be the first to cry? And have you worked on your speech? Now, from a timing standpoint, how do you get your life story in 10 to 15 minutes? Well, Ray Lewis, 45 minutes. But how do you do that? It's almost impossible. Some of them did a great job at it. I'm into being on time. So I just don't believe you should have a long speech. It's very, very hard to do, and especially most of the time, this is kind of your swan song in sports. Like, we're honoring you, and after this, it's going to be hard for you to get any other honors. So it's very, very hard to be able to put all those words together in timely fashion.
One note about the speech that I think is interesting that I learned this morning talking to Chris is, when you are elected to the Hall, you consider that like getting engaged to be married. And the speech is your wedding day. And by that, I mean this. You guys had a luncheon Friday.
Yes.
Were those guys Hall of Famers at that luncheon?
Not technically. The way the Hall has been established, that's not, no.
No, you're not.
There's a series of events that must take place.
And the last and the final culmination is the revealing of the bust.
Yes.
You get the jacket on Friday.
Yes.
They reveal the bust, and then you do your speech. And it's after the speech that you're officially in the Hall of Fame. And so it's a very important moment. Like I had been calling, Randy, first ballot Hall of Famer. Technically, that wasn't true until Saturday. He had been elected, and so that's why.
And the reason for that is your bust is unveiled on Saturday night at the enshrinement. Then you have your speech, and then once your speech is ended, if you have a party that night, typically your bust will travel to your party. But that night will be the first night that your bust is in the hall. So that is the reason why the system of events with the selection at the Super Bowl and then the other things that happen afterwards, the ceremonies, that it's an amazing accomplishment.
And that's also, that last part is also why, and we'll talk more about T.O. later, why T.O. not participating in the ceremony was for the Hall of Famers maybe a bigger deal than to the general public, because he was waiving the moment where he actually got into the Hall of Fame. But we can spend time on that later.
An honor to sit next to a Hall of Famer.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.